Anyway, I have this on. We're set. We're ready. We have a light olive thread. I should honestly be using a thicker denier or a stronger aught than I am, but I just wanted this color because it sort of matches the chartreuse nicely. So I'm going to clean up my tag, come back up for some strength, and start my wire. I have a dark forest green for color choice and wire, and I like to try and keep this centered on the top if at all possible. Come all the way back to the bend in the hook. That'll make it really nice to just keep it out of the way and start the wraps forward from a spot that's less noticeable. I'm going to go back up just for security. Now that I'm approximately at my halfway point, I'm going to grab a piece of marabou feather and I'm going to strip off a section of the side. I mean, if you were doing a really big nymph, you could probably maybe use a whole marabou feather, but we are going to use this like a dubbing loop, and so I'm going to size this up and tighten this down. This frilly stuff isn't important as much as it is just to build some securities. I'm gonna go capture all this stuff in. You don't like, it's not frilly on purpose. I just wanted to be able to pull it back or wedge it forward and give the marabou some strength for where it tied into. Alright, that's pretty good. I mean, the whole thing is going to get dubbed over with that, so it doesn't need to be too clean. But I do want to pick out my backing material. In this case, I have this dyed turkey feather that is chartreuse, which is my high vis colors. And I don't know if there's an exact number, but I think I have about 10 pieces there. You want to have enough so that it's a big, wide, broad back to your fly. You don't need it to just be a skinny little strip. You want it to have some meat to it, I guess. So, I guess I'm not totally ready for this. I should move my thread all the way back down to where all of the materials are kind of starting from. Now I want to measure a decent tail from where the back of the fly is, probably about a ½ inch if you were a carpenter. We want to do a few tight turns, 6 or 7 or so, And then you'll continue. Sometimes I like to do this. This is a little trick of mine if you're tying a whole bunch of these and you just want that stuff out of the way. Come up close to it and do almost a wrap on top of it, and that way it will stand out away from the rest of the fly. So it's a good trick to keep everything straight and not mixing up too much. So you're going to take your marabou at this point, and some of it's coming loose, but that's okay. What we want to do is we want to twist it. I'll get my hand out of the camera. You want to twist it up, dub it up, so it looks almost like a dubbing noodle. You're gonna wrap that in front of the green chartreuse biots you just tied in. And it helps to give it a twist every once in a while. It will capture some of that loose material that's coming undone, or help keep that straight in there. So we've gotten up top, we're going to come back for a wrap, and then come back forward for another two, just to help keep build a little bit of a taper. Get that out of the way, capture that with our thread, and put a few nice wraps down just to make sure you have this thing locked into place. And so we don't need it. We're going to trim the rest of that away. Gonna pluck some outliers out, or perhaps they're so close to the front. They got the quill part to them. They're nice and wrapped up tight. So this will be nice and strong. It's not really going to go anywhere. We're going to fold our biots forward from our turkey feather and come around with our wire. The first wrap, I always like to come over right where I have my thread tied over it to just sort of hide my work, make it less visible. I'll put the set screw down so you guys can sort of see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pull this forward and carefully wrap nice segments out of my wire. Take a peek, straighten these guys out. If you don't like where they are, just get your thumbnail and sort of move them where you'd like them. This doesn't have to be perfect. So, coming forward with our wraps, we are just evenly spacing these things until we have them up to about the halfway point. Then we're going to fold this stuff back, do one wrap in front, and come over and forward towards the bead. At which point I like to do a handful of wraps. Then I'll take my wire and I'll fold it back along the opposite side. This is just something to build strength. If you're catching a lot of fish that have teeth like trout, or even some fish, this really helps give the fly the strength it needs to hold up to fish after fish munching away on it. So we're going to go back to where the biots are and do whole bunch of wraps. I'll come forward once and back again just for that. Now with this all locked down and tight with thread, I can helicopter my excess material away. I always like to move my hand because I have had my wire break at where my fingers have been, but after enough spins it always comes free. Alright, so I've got this white ostrich furl, and I want 3 or 4 strands of it. Seems I have 5, and that's okay by me. Doesn't need to be exact, it's just going to help us cover up all of our work up in this thorax area. As always, I like to wrap stuff in, double back, sweep it backwards, and wrap over it again, adding strength and character to my nymph. Now, for the legs, we are going to take the short part of this feather, and we want at least 6 biots. If you get more, that's okay. I would say 6 to 8. I don't know if you want to go terribly over having 4 legs on each side, but you do you, and if you're building them really big, then who's to say what you're doing doesn't hurt. Size these up to having the legs approximately 3/8 or maybe 5/16 of an inch. You can always wrap forward and spread them out afterwards, but maybe I want a little too short. I'll give these guys a tug going forward. Sweep them back, get out in front of them, and do a few wraps there. Now that I'm in front of everything, well, they're not completely synced up in the back. Make sure that these new biots are tied in to where the thorax begins. So when we go to fold this all over, you want everything to sort of match up and be semi-symmetrical. Alright, so now that that's done, we're going to grab all of our ostrich furl. Just pull it over. Pinch it at the top, pull it over, get a hackle pliers. I don't know how you want to do it, but there's multiple ways to skin the cat, so you do you. I'm going to pinch mine up at the top like so and wrap it with some thread, knowing that I have it locked off now, and can trim it away. Now, simply, all we're going to do is fold all of that material forward. All of the old buy-it material. I mean, if you see you have more legs on one side than the other, you can try and fix it here. Cross them over and put them on the opposite side, but I don't know if the trout can count. These things are going to be moving wildly in the current. So now that you have it locked in like two wraps and it's not totally secure, try and flatten all those out. Spread them around with your thumbnail and put a little pressure on it to get that whole thing to flatten out where you had the wires. The flatter you can get that, the better. So I'm going to do a few more wraps. Forward and a few wraps back, giving myself a small space that if I fold all my stuff over, so a nice little area in between the head and the major bubble of the thorax. Once you have that locked down, come with your scissors and take that back blade up to the point where you can't have any real slack off. Just trim it away and it should look real nice and clean. Do a few more wraps up by the bead. Especially if your thread matches like mine does. I probably should have used a thicker denier thread because you saw me break a few times on this fly, but here we are. I've whip finished. All I'm going to do now is put a little UV resin on and call it a day.